Welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Chief Studios 1/6 scale limited edition collector figure review. Today I'm going to be taking a look at a figure that I didn't expect to be reviewing on this channel anytime soon, and it is the 10th Doctor Christmas Invasion in PJs and dressing gown variant. Now this is a figure that was released on the Big Chief Studios website exclusively. It was priced at £139, and the reason why I say it was is because this figure has already sold out. It was in fact limited edition to 100 and was available for around 24 hours only because all of them sold out within that time. However, you could also get the opportunity to collect up the parts for this figure, including the head, the PJs, and the dressing gown and slippers separately, if you've pre-ordered the previous figures that have been released, including the 10th Doctor's TARDIS, the 9th Doctor figure, I do believe the Rose figure, and also the upcoming Captain Jack Harkness figure is meant to be coming with the sword and Satsuma as seen within the Christmas Invasion as well. So this is a rather unusual figure. However, I didn't want to turn down the opportunity to in fact have this rather unusual figure in my collection. This review is going to be a little bit of an unusual one because even though I'm going to be reviewing the product, because this figure is sold out and has been for a number of weeks now, the likelihood of you actually being able to buy this is pretty slim. However, if you do ever come across the opportunity in the future to buy it, I guess this is kind of a presentation video of what you could get if you collect together all the parts or have the opportunity to maybe buy the PJs separately in the future. Taking a look at the packaging that this figure comes in, as you can see, it is very different from the other 1/6 scale figures that I've reviewed, because due to this figure being a very strict run of only 100, it wouldn't really be very economically beneficial to in fact design a whole box for this figure, and due to the fact that it doesn't have any swappable hands or accessories, it kind of makes sense to include it in a smaller box because it's just a little bit more convenient, isn't it? So instead we just almost get this cardboard coffin design. As you can see, it is rather tall. It is of course black corrugated cardboard, and then at the very front we do get a sticker that nicely shows off the figure along with the Jodie Whittaker typeface there, this time in the white design, the BBC logo. The figure nicely displayed with a blue vortex running around the side, and then of course at the very bottom we do get the 10th Doctor's dates being between 2005 and 2010, along with the title of the figure that reads the Christmas Invasion 6 scale character replica figure, with some company information along the bottom along with the barcode and the Big Chief logo. Minor little nitpick for the box, it would have been nice to maybe have a sticker on this, maybe even added to this sticker in fact on the front, that says this is number say 68 out of 100, that is in fact handwritten on. Due to this being a very small number of releases, it just would have been nice to have that on there. It wouldn't really require too much effort. It's just kind of something that I like to see, having on actual products a handwritten number. And on the inside of the box now, once again we don't really get too much going on. We just get this foam sleeve along the very front which protects the figure on the inside, and then we get the template where the figure nicely sits as well, along with a few bags over the limbs and the head to ensure that dust doesn't get into it. So here we have the figure out of the box, and this is in fact a rather unusual release because it is a rather obscure costume. It was of course seen in the Christmas Invasion for a few scenes, and then I do believe the pyjamas were also reused in the series 3 story Smith and Jones. However, they may have just been very similar. I assume that if you are somebody that has in fact bought this figure, you are somebody that has bought previous Big Chief figures in the past, because this is almost an expansion figure to the previous set. So naturally, if you have still the 9th Doctor or the 10th Doctor figure, you do have sort of a few additional features that you can use this figure for, which I will get onto in a little bit. Taking a closer look at the costume, now the benefit of this figure is that pyjamas and dressing gowns are in fact naturally quite baggy anyway, meaning that it looks quite natural on this figure because it kind of looks like this in real life. So starting off with the dressing gown at the very top, this has been made of a rather nice soft material. As you can see, we almost have a quite nice dark blue there, which is exactly the same all the way around of course because it is made of one material. And we do also have this rather nice stitching line running along the side there as well. I do like the way that we have this trim as well that has been bent round in the actual tailoring to ensure that we have almost this collar design along with a lighter blue stitching along the side. However, unfortunately on the left hand side mine does have a little bit of a glitch in there. As you can see, we do have a bit of a stitching piece that has gone a little bit incorrect, which that is a shame, but hey, that can't really be helped at the same time. And then taking a look at the lower half of the figure, we do also have the stitching of a pocket, which I do believe is in fact usable, which you can, if you have a small plastic Satsuma, you could possibly put that in there as well, which is quite nice. And once again we do have a trim running along the top of this, which is once again light blue. Out of this, once again we do have a stitching design running along the upper half of the arm and then the sides of the waist as well, and we do also have these little clasps which run along the back of the figure as well to hold the band where you tie it together in place, which is quite nice. Of course, the band that does run along the side of this figure is in fact a completely separate piece, and much like a dressing gown in real life, you can tie it together at the very front and also remove it. Now, due to this being a small piece of almost light feltish material, there is in fact a little bit of material fray on the side of this. As you can see, a few strands of string will come off every so often, which once again would have been nice to be able to have that tied up a little bit more just to make it a little bit neater, but at the same time, it can't really be helped considering the material that this is made from. And I have the option to have it completely tied, or of course exposing the pajamas underneath, which is a nice feature. The lower half of the arm, we do also get this additional stitching pattern where we have the cuff of the dressing gown coming around the side that has been folded up. And then we do also have this lighter blue stitching pattern, which is once again present. Now, bottom of the dressing gown, we do get this stitching design, which once again ends off the material quite nicely, making it look quite neat. As with all big chief figures, of course, the clothes can be removed and the dressing gown is very easily removed. In fact, so all you need to do is slide the arms back and then tilt the dressing gown off as so, and then you have just the pajamas underneath. And once the dressing gown is removed, you can in fact start to recreate the scenes as seen at the very end of the Christmas Invasion when he is fighting the leader of the Sycorax. And you can also, which is a very nice novelty, remove the hand and actually make it look like it has been cut off, much like how it did in the actual story. Which, closer look at the detail on the pajamas, now it does pretty much follow exactly the same design to any other 1/6 scale figure shirt, just a little bit more baggy than usual, as I do believe it's been made of a slightly thicker material to probably give it the appearance of cotton or something like that. I do have a few creases in there as well, which does give it a rather nice dated feel, much like how it did look in the actual story. The pinstripe itself has been done rather nicely with a salmon pink colour and a light green design in there as well, which does follow around the majority of the pajamas, and this has been really nicely stitched together. As you can see, the lighter colour underneath of the white is a little bit offset, once again giving it a rather dated appearance, and then of course around the very bottom, rather neatly, we do get this rather nice stitching line of the white in there as well to keep all the material together. And we do also have the cuffs of the pajamas in there as well, which once again follow exactly the same pinstripe design. Front of the pajamas there, we do in fact get some buttons that are being glued on, once again in a kind of cream plastic colour. And then at the very top along the side of this, we do get the pocket, which once again does work if you wish to put anything in there. Under the actual pajamas, we do once again get the actual function to keep the pajamas in place, so sort of the poppers there, which have been done rather well and are rather hidden, which is nice to see. They haven't gone with Velcro, which is very good, because one of my pet hates with 1/6 scale figures and any other doll for that matter is in fact the Velcro being visible on the figure. It just makes it look a little bit messy, so it is nice to see that that is absent on this release. And of course at the very top we do have the collar of the pajamas, which have been replicated rather nicely with the folds in there to give it the appearance of an actual collar. Going down to the lower half of the figure to take a look at the pajama bottoms, as you can see once again they have been made of exactly the same material, once again with the salmon pink pinstripe design in there as well. In fact, have this drawstring almost piece that has been done rather well, which you can in fact tie to be quite tight around the waist of the figure in case you want to display it in a slightly different manner. And yeah, this is rather big. I think that the actual string itself may have worked a little bit better if it was smaller, but you can kind of tuck it behind the trousers if you wish for it not to be visible when displaying the figure. And then taking a look at the bottom, once again we do get the stitching design at the very cuffs of the trousers. The 10th Doctor not wearing socks in the actual story, we don't have any socks below the pajamas, which does in fact wreck the illusion slightly, so we do have a little bit of exposure to sort of the rather thin ankle piece of the action figure body underneath, which is a little bit of a shame, but also can't be helped at the same time. And then taking a look at the slippers, we just get a very basic design on these. In fact, they have been made in a plastic and are in fact removable to reveal the toes underneath. We don't have any paint apps on these whatsoever, they have just been sculpted in a darker blue design, and we do have the sole of the shoe on there at the bottom as well. It would be nice to maybe have a slightly grey paint app added to the top of these to give them a little bit of a worn feel, much like how slippers would have in real life, especially towards the bottom there. I think that those soles could do with a little bit of paint on them just to make them look a little bit more used as opposed to looking brand new. So taking a look at the likeness of the figure now this has come under quite a lot of fire by many people because it looks rather unusual. Of course, the previous Big Chief figures that I reviewed on this channel have tended to have very serene expressions. Their faces look rather normal. It's gone incredibly manic because of course this is the Doctor as seen pretty much immediately after his regeneration. I do believe that this exact pose is taken from that scene at the end of Parting of the Ways where he turns to look at Rose and says Barcelona, and then he gives that big massive grin. I think that this is in fact very representative of what is seen within the actual story. people have been saying that this figure doesn't exactly look normal, but to be honest, this is the 10th Doctor wearing pyjamas and a dressing gown, so I think that any form of normality kind of went out the window a long time ago, because this figure is meant to kind of look insane. I think that this kind of benefits from that, having this rather unusual expression. And that said, at the same time, unusually, I actually think that this figure has a few revised paint apps that make it a little bit better than the Series 4 version of the 10th Doctor. Even though that one has a very good likeness to a normal-looking version of the 10th Doctor, I still feel that this one has a little bit of character towards it that the Series 4 one necessarily didn't have. Taking a closer look at the emotion that it's expressing, as you can see, we have the giant grin at the very front, so we have the teeth really nicely being bared at the front now with some rather nice paint apps on those, surrounded by the lips that have been given a rather natural skin tone, and the majority of the cheeks of the face have in fact got this rather nice freckled pattern, as you can see, coming up the nose there, and then contouring back around the opposite side. And we also have the way that the cheeks have been sculpted to make them look rather bold along the side of the face. We also love the way that the eyes have in fact been painted, as you can see, as per usual, much like the majority of the Big Chief figures that have been released in recent years. We do have that rather glazed effect over the top to give it this rather nice varnish, making it look very natural. And we do have some also really nice impressive details of the iris in there as well, along with the pupil. And then we also get the additional facial paint apps as well, including the eyebrows that have been painted on rather naturally. And we also get a little bit of stubble towards the bottom as well. If I just tilt up the face a little bit, as you can see, we have almost a beard coming on there that we necessarily didn't get on the Series 4 version. And I actually think from the side profile, the way that the nose arches and kind of goes back out again very much does look like David Tennant. And on the side of the face, we do also have the detailing of the ears there with the different canals really nicely reflected with a few paint apps in there as well. And I do love the different shades of pink that have been used to really capture that skin tone. And also, one of my favourite parts of detail for the actual likeness is the way that we have all those creases around the bags of the eyes, once again making it look very natural and almost makes him look a little bit tired as well, which, to be honest, I imagine that he would be throughout the story, considering he's wearing pyjamas and the fact that he's just regenerated from Christopher Eccleston. Opposite side profile of the face now, I do believe that we have a slight paint tap on the very bottom eyelid. It does tend to sort of overlap a little bit, maybe where the varnish is reflecting in the light or something like that, but I've tried to take photos of this figure and it constantly looks like there is a little blemish at the very bottom of the eye. So I don't know if that is the same for every single figure, or I don't know if it's just the varnish, but still I think it looks rather natural and rather insane. Once again, much like how he kind of did portray throughout the actual episode. Taking a look at the hair, we do also have an impressive amount of detail on here. Unlike the Series 4 figure, where it is sculpted to almost be spiking up, this is the earlier version of the 10th Doctor, where it is almost sculpted to be going down a little bit. It is sort of a little bit of a mid-boundary between the original sculpt of the David Tennant figure and the Series 4 version. I think that this is one of the most impressive details to actually show that this is a later sculpted head when compared to the Series 4 version, because I love the way that the hair actually covers the face. As you can see, we have some individual strands there coming down the forehead, and we also have this individual strand coming down the side as well, which I think makes it look incredibly natural. And then also on top of this, we do also have a numerous amount of paint apps on the side there as well, really nicely reflecting the different strands of hair, some lighter brush strokes, some darker brush strokes in there as well, really nicely creating a lot of depth. So again, on the top and back of the head, we do get the individual strands of hair really nicely sculpted, and I love the way that we do have some lighter paint apps towards the top to represent the roots of the hair coming through. But overall for the head, I'm actually rather impressed with it. Yes, it is unusual. Yes, it is a lot different from all of the other heads in the collection, but as I mentioned earlier, I think if this figure was to have a normal serene sculpt, it wouldn't exactly look any more normal, because I think that the actual costume and this head really nicely complements each other. My only main criticism for this head is probably that for photography purposes and in different scenarios, it can be a little bit difficult to in fact photograph and make it look normal, so it is needed to be captured at certain angles and certain lights in order to actually look effective. So for example, probably face on is the least effective, but from the side profiles it does look a little bit better. Comparison now to the Series 4 version of the 10th Doctor, I think you can quite obviously tell there is a lot of differences, and I actually think that the pyjama version of the 10th Doctor actually looks a little bit younger, which is a really nice feature considering he was theoretically younger at the time of filming that story. And I do think that if you are somebody that has the original Series 4 version, which is back in stock on the Big Chief website by the way, and I do recommend checking out that review if you haven't bought it already, I think if you are somebody who doesn't have that version and this version of the the 10th Doctor in his pyjamas is kind of your only version to go off, then yes, you will probably want one with a more natural expression. But I think that if you have the original version or the Series 4 one, then this latest version with the regeneration head is definitely sort of a welcome variation. Whilst we're talking about skin tone, I also may as well mention the hands. These have been done once again in your standard Big Chief format. However, they've just decided to give you one pair of hands for this figure, being the open palm position. However, these do have a few nice skin tone details in there. As you can see, much like the actual face, you do have a few darker freckles that have been applied to the top of this. And we also do have the fingernails as well with a slightly lighter paint app. And as per usual, these fingers are flexible, ensuring that it can actually hold props if you so wish. And if you do in fact have many other Big Chief figures in your collection, as you've no doubt seen throughout this video, you can actually swap and change the hands so he can hold different accessories such as a sonic screwdriver, and you can also change out the head as well for the more serene version if you so wish. Additionally, another bonus feature the Big Chief collectors can have is also using this version of the Regeneration 10th Doctor head and placing it onto the 9th Doctor's body, and you can almost create a post-regeneration 9th Doctor figure, which you no doubt would have been able to already create this if you in fact pre-ordered the 9th Doctor originally, because this head did in fact come with that figure anyway. But this is a really nice variation once again, and even if you have the black jumper from Parting of the Ways that was also available via the pre-order, then this is kind of a rather nice variation. Briefly, to round off, going over a few pieces of articulation that this figure has. As per usual, it comes on your standard animatronics body with over 30 points of articulation. So naturally, we do have a ball joint at the head, meaning that you can look up and down and rotate 360. We also have a ball joint at the arms as well, meaning it can move forwards, outwards, and wherever. We have the ball joint at the wrists as well, meaning that those can pivot from side to side. Bend at the elbow, we have that you can bend in and also backwards. We also have the T-crotch joint, meaning that you can bend out to the side. We have the double joint at the knee as well, meaning that it can go to 90 and then all the way back to the side as well. And then we also have the ball joint at the ankle, meaning that that can pivot also from side to side as well. So lots of points of articulation, ensuring that you have lots of different poses available when posing this figure on display. As expected, the 10th Doctor in regeneration pyjamas and dressing gown does fit in incredibly well with the rest of the Big Chief Studios 1/6 scale figure collection. So we have the different incarnations of the Doctor, along with Clara in there as well. And he's definitely probably the most obscure and random versions of the Doctor that I will ever add to my Big Chief collection. And now I've said that, I'm waiting for this figure to be outdone, and I'm going to get an even more unusual variant in the future. But hey, it's a nice, niche, obscure, unusual, really weird figure to look at, but I'm glad that I bought it in the end because it is a really nice compliment to the rest of the Big Chief collection. So overall, for the Doctor Who Big Chief Studios 1/6 scale limited edition 2/100 collector figure of the 10th Doctor in dressing gown and pyjamas from the first ever 10th Doctor story, The Christmas Invasion, I think that this is a very unusual, obscure, yet interesting variant to the collection. In no way do I recommend this figure to people who have just started out with Big Chief. I think that this is definitely a figure that is a variant for the collectors. I think especially if you have the original version of the 10th Doctor, then this is maybe something worth considering. If you have the 9th Doctor and would like to recreate the regeneration or something like that, then this is also a figure for you. However, I think the sheer fact that this is a rather simplistic release, the fact that the clothing is literally only a dressing gown and a pair of pyjamas, means that it is a lot more simple when compared to, say, the 12th Doctor or the 11th Doctor figures, because the tailoring isn't as impressive. However, I still think that the paint apps on their head and the likeness is in fact rather impressive and does look very much like David Tennant. However, it still would have been nice to see a few alterations in there. Maybe the dressing gown could have had a few additional details. It might have been nice to maybe have a piece of wire within the sides of the dressing gown just to make it a little bit more displayable, much like, say, with the 9th Doctor's coat. And it also may have been nice to see a few additional paint apps to the slippers as well. And also, it may have been nice to see the sword. As you can see in front of you right now, I've displayed this figure with the Sycorax sword as seen within the story. This is in fact the 5-inch character options version. And I do know that Big Chief currently have plans to release the sword, and I do believe the tangerine as well, with the Captain Jack Harkness figure. However, it would have been nice for the 100 people that actually were able to get this release. It may have been nice to maybe have that sword and Satsuma tangerine thing go into production a little bit early, just so this figure has a unique accessory. But that said, I think the fact that you can display the sonic screwdriver from, say, the 10th Doctor or 9th Doctor releases previously with this figure is sort of just good enough. So yeah, it's definitely one of which for the collectors, it is a little bit cheaper, and I do recommend it for those people who like getting random costumes in their collection, because this one is definitely one of those. So thanks for watching this review, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions about this release, then please do leave them in the description below, and I will reply to them at some point in the near future. And I hope that in the future, I'll be able to do a few more Big Chief reviews as well, because hey, I didn't expect to do this one, so who knows what's going to come next from the Big Chief reviews. Maybe Rose Tyler, maybe another Doctor, I honestly don't know anymore. So thanks for watching this review, hope you've enjoyed it, and I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.